welcome back to the State of Flux podcast. Today's episode is truly one for the books. I'm thrilled to introduce Tyree Robinson, a guest whose journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. From his early days as a trumpet prodigy in New Hampshire to his acting role on Boardwalk Empire and his experiences living on a houseboat, participating in Occupy Wall Street, and now leading the charge in blockchain, crypto, and AI, Tyree really has done it all. I've been friends with Ty for about 4 years, and even I learned a lot in this interview. So sit back and get ready to be inspired. Let's dive in.
Are you ready?
How's your morning going?
Good, just crypto land, talking about markets and working on too many startups.
You've got a lot of startups in the queue.
I have 2 major ones right now, and then an infrastructure that we built really recently that really needs to be its own company. It's this huge piece of infrastructure that everybody needs, and it's connecting a $20 billion ecosystem to a $30 billion ecosystem.
You are the chief ecosystems officer at OriChain.
Yeah.
Before you did that, you were an actor and a musician. That's a very interesting career change. As we're getting into that, I just want to talk a little bit about your origin stories, growing up in New Hampshire, how you ended up in New York at Carnegie Mellon, and what drew you to acting in the first place.
So to start off, being Black in New Hampshire was hilarious thing growing up, and I always knew that it was funny. And I'm half Black, biracial, right? So growing up in school as a kid, there was always this thing where it was like, you're the athlete, and I was terrible at sports. I was awful. I played a little baseball. I was okay, but I was not a basketball player. Football terrified me. I did not play soccer. I ran cross country. I played baseball. I played baseball because my dad made me play baseball. I liked it, but it wasn't like a thing that I was going to do for my whole life. And so in the 3rd grade, I had been doing Little League already for a couple of years. And my mom and I went to this yard sale and saw this trumpet and picked it up. It didn't work, and I messed around with it at home, twisted in all the little knobs until I could actually get air blown through it. And then I would bring it to school and sit out on the playground by myself over in a corner, trying to blow into this trumpet and make noise. And in the 3rd grade, the music teacher, Mr. Joseph, saw me, and he was like, yo, I've never seen a 3rd grader play the trumpet ever in my life. You should come and join the elementary school band, which was 5th graders. So my first experience in the arts, and at the time, by the way, in 3rd grade, I was listening to Miles Davis and learning little bits and pieces from ear, not being able to read music, and just being able to play little bits and pieces of So What, his solo and So What and some things.
Is anyone in your family musical? For a 3rd grader to even know who Miles Davis is, that's impressive to begin with.
So my mother had really good taste in music, I would say. My dad listened to a lot of R&B, 90s pop R&B stuff. We listened to Luther Vandross and Keith Sweat, and my dad also was into West Coast rap and stuff. But my mom had great taste in music, and she had a lot of jazz and Marsalis guys, Arturo Sandoval. We listened to just a lot more jazz and also some classical music. And we had 2 Miles Davis albums, Kinda Blue and Sketches of Spain, and they were my favorite records as a kid, right? And we, CDs were just kind of popping off, right? We went from having tapes in the car to having CDs in the car. And I would listen to that. I would listen to Jamiroquai. We had Desiree playing in the car a lot. We had Prince playing in the car a lot. So I had a lot of these really diverse musical influences that were funk, pop, but then also a lot of jazz. And that was sort of my introduction to music. When I realized, because, in 3rd grade, you go from knowing nothing to knowing everything. And that's sort of what I felt like had happened in every way in my life. But specifically in music, I didn't know what the trumpet was. I didn't know that Miles Davis played the trumpet. It was just an album my mother played in the car. But then all of a sudden it was the pictures of Miles Davis and him playing the trumpet, and all of those things started to create this deep vibe in me. So that's where I started. And then I ended up sort of picking up the trumpet and playing, and then getting into the band scene again in 3rd grade, which always kind of made me feel like a snob. I was this overachiever. I had private lessons every Saturday, and huge shout out to Glenn DePine. my trumpet teacher who took me on in third grade, had never taught a student so young as me. And we were not well off, right? He charged my mother $5 for an hour lesson for the entire time I played from the third grade until I graduated high school. In 2006, I paid $5 every Saturday for my lesson. It was incredible. So got me off on a really good start. Also gave me a lot of confidence that I think that some people don't have when they enter playing music for the first time. I'll just call it an ego. I had a big ego that I just had dreams. I was like, I can do anything I want because I'm already ahead of everybody. So that's where I started.
That's such an important lesson. And it's so important for children to be exposed to art or sports or both or whatever it is, because for a kid to actually have the confidence to go on and decide who they are, who they want to be, they need that kind of sense of achievement and pride in something that you're doing that comes along with learning some form of the arts or playing sports. Even if you're not great at sports, it's like, well, I was on the team. It's a sense of pride. And I think the arts is a great way to do that.
Yeah. And I think that everything was much more well-rounded when we were kids. I think that there was a strong attention to arts education where maybe once or twice a week, you would have like the music class and the arts class. And to my understanding, at least here in New York, they don't have that. And last time I was up in New Hampshire, like the music building was gone at my elementary school. They had torn it down. I'm not saying that there isn't a music class anymore. It's just not where it was. Yeah. So I just wonder how kids get their start these days. Maybe it was part of just the political situation. You know, Clinton was president, saxophone playing. Yeah. Just a different attention to the value of arts in our culture. I mean, 2.67 million artists are currently in our workforce, right? That's 1.6% of the American workforce is an artist. And that's just the people that are sort of in director, actor, artist, creative director roles. That's not everybody else that's influenced by art in their life and contributes to our huge GDP. Art infuses so much money into the economy. So having the creativity be a part of your upbringing in the beginning is, I think, so important. So every 2 months, I go down to Texas and help this organization called Texans for the Arts build policy positions around how to advocate for art funding in a state where that's basically impossible.
Yeah.
Where
that's awesome.
Like 25% slashes of the art budget.
As a New York by way of New Hampshire person, how did you end up getting involved with the Texas arts program?
So this will get back into the story about like where I came from a little bit. So I went to public school in elementary school, and then I went to public school in middle school. Sixth grade, I should say, was my only year in public school there because, you know, you start chasing girls and all the things. At the time, the music in our world was Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Cisco was my jam. Thong Song was my go-to at the talent show. I spray painted my hair silver and got up there in a Cisco dance to Thong Song, and I think I got detention for it. So I had only been sort of a musician up until that point in my life. Between 6th and 7th grade, my mother was like, you should think about going to the Dairyfield School in New Hampshire, which was on the other side of town, but it was a private school. And the only way I was going to go there is if I got a scholarship. Luckily, being Black in New Hampshire, maybe that was part of it. Maybe it was just all merit. But, you know, I did get a scholarship to go to this private middle school. And that's where everything really became real for me in terms of being a musician, because before that I was like, oh yeah, you're playing the elementary school band or whatever. But now I'm in a private school where you have this beautiful auditorium music facility. I met one of my biggest sort of guiding forces. Her name is Laurel Davino, who was both our middle school teacher for the band, but she was also the person that did the musical every year. And that was sort of where the acting thing started to come in. So now I never thought about being an actor ever in my life. I knew that I was a clown, and I knew that I loved playing the trumpet and that I was a musician and I could read music and all of that. But I didn't know that I could sing or any of that stuff, right? And so, you know, Mrs. Davino said, you know, you should try out for Oklahoma in the 7th grade. and I tried out. And I was terrible. And I was in the chorus. I had no lines or anything like that. But now, after being this achieved trumpet player up until a certain point in time and really being serious as a musician, between the seventh and eighth grade, I was like, I'm never going to be in the chorus ever again in a musical. I can do this. I'm going to be a singer. I already know that I can act, whatever that means. I can do all of that. I'm a good clown performer guy. Between that time and eighth grade, I took it really seriously. I took singing lessons. I did all these things. But at that time, my worldview was musicals exist only in middle school. I didn't even know about Broadway, right? I didn't know about any of that. What I knew was that there was a middle school musical and that I wanted to be the star of that in my senior year of middle school, which was eighth grade. That was sort of the evolution for me that then led to seeing the rest of the world. I had seen Les Mis on video, which sort of changed my life, and realizing that there was a real world for this. It sort of brought me back to the childhood opera, hearing O Solo Mio and the three tenors and stuff, and being like, okay, that's where this fits into my world now. There's a profession in this. And then I started seeing community theaters in New Hampshire. One of them was called the Peacock Players. Now, when I say that there are certain places that have gravity, that they just attract a lot of talent, more professional actors came out of that little tiny community theater than any other community that I've ever come across. Carnegie Mellon, sort of flash forwarding ahead a little bit, is the most exclusive acting and musical theater program in the world, basically. They accept 10 to 12 people in the musical theater program, 10 people in the acting program. In the 2 or 3 years on either side of me, we had 8 people from our little New Hampshire community in the most exclusive acting and music school in the country, which was just mind-blowing. And I don't know if that's continued or whatever, but it was a special time, I think. And in the process of that, I met one of my best friends in the world. His name's Chris Kiley, who, after his whole acting career, went on to be the head of Texans for the Arts, the director of Texans for the Arts, which is this big art advocacy organization. And him and I have always talked about, one day we're going to do this, we're going to do that in terms of creative things, projects in the future. But when AI became a thing, he started saying, all of my constituents are asking now what our policy position is going to be when we go into the 2025 Texas legislative session, and we don't have a strong position right now. So a year ago, he was like, I just want you to come on board as an advisor, and we're going to host panels, travel around Texas and do talks, and sort of share what we are learning along the way, and also hear from all of the art communities to see what they want, which was just an incredible experience. Because through Chris, we're in these rooms of anywhere from 16 to 80-year-old artists everywhere, every demographic, race, gender, across the spectrum. And we're talking about AI, and we're talking about blockchain solutions for AI and intellectual property. And these were people that were anti-AI when we walked in the room, that were anti-crypto, that thought NFTs were a scam. But at the end of every single one of these talks we would have, they would all come away and be like, that was incredibly informative. And I actually do see a pathway forward with this technology to help us as artists. So let us know when there's a product that we can use. Now, we weren't trying to sell anything, right? We were just going out there and doing the route and trying to hear from people. But now we're in this really special place where everybody's looking to us to find a product. And there are also all of these startups out there building great products in IP and AI that we're connecting the dots. So really exciting stuff. That's sort of where I got tied in Texas, but I've never given up on arts being a central part of my journey. And yeah, it's still a very big driver for me, even though I'm in DeFi land most days of the week.
So does that mean we're going to see you acting again someday?
I don't know. I guess we can talk about this a little bit. Acting was really my favorite thing. I didn't want to do anything else. When I discovered acting, I decided that it was going to be either acting or I played the trumpet. And that was a hard decision for me. And I decided that I was going to be an actor and that trumpet was going to take a back seat. And that was when I was 18 years old. I had applied to all the colleges. I was getting a full ride scholarship at Carnegie Mellon to go and be a singer, an actor, and a dancer. and I had never danced in my life. I was the worst dancer on earth. I still am. But that was a thing. And I said, this is going to be real. I'm going to go and do that. And the 4 years of college, I just think for me were an incredible experience for building relationships with the people in my class. And I would say that those people are still my best friends. And I would say that some of the best education that I got, absolutely, in terms of acting, from a lot of teachers that are no longer at Carnegie Mellon, actually. And that was enough getting through that hard 4 years of acting education to sort of send me into the New York career. Now, Rich, you see me. I've got these gap teeth. I wanted to go to Hollywood straight out of college. I had offers from representation and all that. But 2 agents that I met with out in LA were like, you have to knock your teeth out and get veneers if you want to come to LA. And I was like, I never want to do this. I'm not going to give up who I am. It's a huge part of who I am. I'm confident in who I am. I don't have a problem with my teeth. So you're pointing at something that I think makes me very unique and trying to diminish it and make me feel weak. And I vowed in 2010, I'm never going to LA to go and be an actor or do business. It's just not interesting. And I had sort of decided at that point that I was only going to go after doing stage. The joke was on me because at the time I didn't realize that the TV industry was so big in New York. And most of the work that I did that was important in New York ended up being on screen anyways. I was always out doing, auditioning for musicals and all of that. Of course, in college, I picked up the smoking habit at one point. So I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, smoking some weed, drinking and partying too much, whatever it might be. So I couldn't keep up with the musical theater kids that are militaristic in the way that they approach their business. They go to sleep early. They wake up early. They go to the gym. They work out. They're very precious. Their body's a sanctuary. I was not like that. I was like, I'm going to be this natural talent, whatever it's going to be. And if it works out, it's going to work out for me. And so the stage thing was just not going the way that I wanted it to or imagined it would straight out of college. I was getting a lot of audition and I was getting callbacks, but I wasn't getting the job. And so I went out for like one of my first big TV auditions, which was Boardwalk Empire, Meredith Tucker's office over on 38th Street, I think it was. And I had slicked my hair down and parted it. I had this little pencil mustache. I was also sort of this like method person that would always go too far on dressing for an audition. Like I didn't just like as I am. I always got into like the mood because a lot of people say that the directors, they don't have that, no offense to any directors out there, but they don't have the imagination to necessarily see you in the role if you don't look like the part. And so I would always go and try to look the part. And so I did that for this Boardwalk Empire audition. And, I got my call back and I went in and this kid, Kyle Beltran, who went to Carnegie Mellon with me, is down to the final callbacks with me. It's the 2 of us. And he has been getting every job out of school that he wanted and was on Broadway. I was like, I'm not getting this, but then I ended up getting it and it went well. I went and did my first episode, my first season on Boardwalk Empire, did my scene in one take, which was like a whole thing for everybody. They were like, this is your first time on TV and you did this in one take. That was incredible. And again, that was like this boost of confidence that I had that took me through the next 6 years of my career, essentially, I mean, on my first episode, I was working with legends. Mike Williams, RIP, is one of the best actors of all time. In my opinion, in terms of people that you work with on set, there's never been anybody so gracious as him and kind, and immediately was like, take my cell phone number, call him if you want to hang out sometime. He invited me to his birthday party. And I swear to God, me being on subsequent seasons of Boardwalk Empire absolutely had to do with him. Yeah, I know that the executive producer liked my work and Terrence Winter liked my work on that episode, but it wasn't until that next season that I like felt the love, where in my second season, I had scenes with Steve Buscemi, and then I was working with Jeffrey Wright, and I was working with just these people that like you glorify so much as an actor, getting respect and all of that. And of course, then they killed my character off. My wife while I was off screen, which was fine. But going back to music for a minute, Mike Williams had just done this Miles Davis biopic, and he was working with Toronto Film Festival on it. And he had actually asked me to teach him how to play the trumpet again because he hadn't played in a long time. So I gave him my first learner's trumpet, and then I taught him a little bit. And then my friend Dave Levy, who's this really fantastic trumpet player, had gone on after we were sort of like kids playing. He was a real pro pro. And I was like,
Yeah.
you're done with me. Now you should go and learn with Dave. And he had given him a really nice trumpet and was giving him lessons all the time. It was just kind of this amazing thing. And then whatever it was, Mike was like, we were shooting in Soho and he was like, come down, we're going to shoot the trailer or something. And he was in his full like 70s Jerry curl Miles Davis with big furs on. And that was incredible seeing Mike as Miles Davis. So full circle from my first sort of musical experiences into like the most impactful acting experiences, Miles Davis was always there.
So now you're here, you go to this prestigious school for the arts, you come out, you land this massive opportunity. Now you've been on this show, you've got integrated into that world a little bit. Where are you at mentally? Are you like, this is it, I'm off to the races, I'm going to be an actor for the rest of my life? Or are you still scared of what's to come next? Like, when's my next role coming, sort of a scenario?
Unfortunately for my career, I've always been a revolutionary. In 2011, Occupy Wall Street happened, and that ate my soul. I was like, this is my calling. And so the acting stuff really took a back seat in a lot of ways to being a disruptor in general. You know what I mean? Like a political disruptor, being there throughout Occupy Wall Street, trying at the end of Occupy Wall Street in November, trying to move the occupation into Central Park. Me and like a couple of buddies did that and led a big march from all the way from downtown up to Central Park and tried to like start the camp there. And my friends got arrested and we kind of slanked our way back downtown again. And then we tried again to start the occupation in Union Square in 2012. At that point, I had decided I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a musician, a singer. Still, I wanted to go after all of those things. One thing that was really sort of hard for me was giving up the New York lifestyle so soon after being in New York, right? I had moved to New York. I moved to McDougal Street. I was like in the heart of everything. And I stayed in Bushwick for a long time, right? I was McKibben Lofts when that was popping and very ragtag. And then after that, I had moved to Chinatown, which is a whole nother year-long conversation where we can talk about Chinatown and Dame Dash and like my whole experience in that scene. But that was like a whole thing that I had in Chinatown. And then I think it was in the end of maybe it was 2011, 2012. Hurricane Sandy happened.
2012.
It was 2012, right? End of 2012. So Hurricane Sandy happened. A friend of mine said that he found a boat that was $1,000 sailboat that was going to cost us a lot more. There was no mast on it. The mast had gotten knocked down in the storm, all this stuff. We like used JB Weld to like put the mast on it, fell off. It was like this whole thing, right? But we went and bought this boat, put a motor on it. The motor didn't work. And then we paddled the boat from Howard Beach out to Rockaway, which is 6 miles across the bay, like giant oars, landed in Rockaway and never looked back. I had decided that boat living was going to be like what I did. If I wanted to live in New York and be an artist, it was all about sort of lowering my overhead so that I can be an artist full time and not feel the pressure to work, basically. Like I just didn't want to work. I just wanted to create. And that's what we did. So I had a few friends. We had a music studio in Bushwick. We had boats. A friend of mine had a sailboat. I ended up buying a houseboat for like $5,000, sold it for $5,000 too when I finally sold it. So I got out clean. And I lived on this houseboat in Rockaway from 2013 until 2015 or 16, before sort of like moving back on land. And that was kind of a crazy time. But in that time, it was also, I would say, the most freeing I had ever been as an artist. I wasn't stuck in New York anymore. It was like, okay, I've got this really cheap and sustainable thing in New York that I can always come back to. But I got to go to Miami and like help run a film festival with a buddy of mine down there. I also went to go work with Moises Kaufman on this new production of Carmen set in Cuba. And it was like very cool production where like there was no money, but it was going to be like working with these legends. I never would have done that if I had to pay $1,500 a month to live in Chinatown or something. And as you know, I'm still in Rockaway Beach today and now raising a family in Rockaway. So I've never left.
Not on the houseboat anymore, though.
Houseboat. No, if I raise the family, I do want to raise my family on a houseboat, but my wife is not open to it yet.
Keyword yet.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's all about business, right? Like you have to make sacrifices in certain ways. Quality of life is great, right? It's great. I'm lucky to have what I have here in Rockaway Beach, which is a $2,600 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom place in Bell Harbor, it's unheard of. I have neighbors that are paying $5,000 a month for less space than us, but we just got lucky, to have people that are very local that gave us an opportunity here. And we've been in this place. We're not going to give it up. And the good thing is that I'm always close enough to go to the city, to go to Long Island, to go to the Children's Museum, to go to the Whitney, wherever they want to go, we're close enough to be there, but far enough that we can still have space, which has really been important. I don't remember what your question was anymore, but as I got sort of to this point of being out here and being free of everything, it let me stretch out a lot more. I had been associate director of operations at Knockdown Center, and I went to a consensus event on crypto, ran into my buddy Rob, who was the head of Halborn Security, which is a huge cybersecurity company down there. He told me about some things. A few years later, I hit him up and was basically like, I have some freedom now and I want to start doing some things in crypto. And he would just put good projects in front of me. What I was doing was just going and writing blogs. I knew that I wanted to be in the space, but I didn't know what that was going to look like. But I knew that in order to sort of continue my education, that I had to be very active about my approach. And so I was just blogging a lot about crypto projects, but then also as the AI thing started to come in 2020, that was really started to catch my attention a lot. And I saw that that was going to be the new frontier. And so I was looking for a home, and Chain, I was writing about them at the time, which was like one of the most hyped things, the company I'm with now. And they offered me a writing gig basically. And they said, come on board and be a writer for us. We like your blogs, you understand our tech, and you break it down well for the general audience. So can we get you publish everything under our name rather than sort of independently? And that was where my crazy crypto journey began. Cause I had been like dabbling and like trading and losing a lot of money on trading because I'm a terrible trader, but I was in it for like the trading, right? I'm like one of those guys that's like in it for the tech and will probably ride crypto to zero someday.
Well, that was going to be my question too. When you first discovered crypto and you were drawn to it, was there any correlation between what drew you to crypto and what drew you to the Occupy movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's no coincidence, I think, that Occupy and Bitcoin were both started around the same time and same year. I don't know if there's any like direct correlation, but it's such a convenient time for those things to line up together in the same exact year. And so the maturity of crypto has always been about sort of letting everything go in terms of like our government. I'm not going to say that I'm anti-government, but I'm anti the government that exists today. I'm a libertarian for all intents and purposes. I would say that the Occupy movement was not liberal or conservative in any way, right? I would say that everybody was very libertarian. And one of the big failings of Occupy Wall Street is that we never unified around a single demand. We just wanted to overthrow everything because it was a movement of discontent where we knew that we were not happy with the circumstances, and we knew that finance was a part of it. We knew that Wall Street was a driver, but we didn't have like policy positions. We weren't going to go lobby. We were not organized in that way. We didn't know what we wanted. And crypto really did become a moment where I realized that this was a technology that enabled a new type of democracy. The problem is that like all democracy, even Occupy Wall Street or anything, that there's a lot of apathy that comes in to that democracy over time. So what you have is in the beginning, this huge groundswell of revolutionary spirit that kind of like drives the tech and the adoption and all of that. And then slowly you see the grifters and the scammers and the gamblers and all of those people become the user graph. And then you have a very small percentage of people that actually are purists and care about the revolutionary potential of the technology. So I think that some of the big venture people that I like really look up to, I don't look up to them because they got a lot of money. I look up to them because they have an agenda that's real. Like A16Z is absolutely a champion for the startup culture in the US, but in the world. When you look at somebody like that and their ability to sort of take apart the little tech agenda and align their politics with advancement of startup culture to disrupt the next generation or the past of technology for the next generation, I think that it's really important. Looking at the failings of what happened previously, I think one of the biggest things that we find here is that artists, content creators, anybody in that field, they don't get their cut, right? We all use social media. We rely on social media. to be an advertising tool for us. But the relationship between AI and this IP that we basically put out there as advertising, but then it's used to train these AI models or used to help and create algorithms for marketing, all of these things. There's so much profit being extracted from the content creator, from the creative, from the user, right? In general. So this has always been like where I see the biggest opportunity in Web3. It's not just sort of the financial rails that it sets up, but it's also the graduation of the primitives to more appropriate solution sets, like dealing with digital IP ownership, provenance, dealing with royalties downstream, and eventually finding common ground to advocate for policy that will actually enforce royalty protections for creators in these platforms. And so that's actually what drives me still to today in a lot of ways.
From my experience with ORI Chain and, working with you guys for 3-4 years now, just getting to be friends with you, I feel like there's a lot of correlation between those values that you just mentioned and what ORI Chain is trying to do with all their many different ventures in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say one of the first things that I had taken over in ORI Chain was I was chief strategy officer for AI Right. And AI Right was an AI generated copyright protocol, that we had a patent for, or that we do have a patent for, that basically ensured that whoever was prompting the AI, as well as the AI developer and all the people that contribute data to that AI model development, could share royalties. And it was this primitive royalty system that was very exciting to me. We didn't know where generative AI was going to be then. If we would have, with very tight focus, only spent time dealing with that and didn't sort of also dabble in DeFi and all of these other things, I think that ORI Chain's overall position in the generative AI market would actually be a lot stronger even than it is today. But being so early in this space, it's also allowed us an opportunity to see people, that's solutions that have gone above and beyond where we have built, and find ways to connect them to the network of people that we've already sort of worked with. On the AI side, we are absolutely advocates for ownable AI. We're absolutely advocates for private intelligence. And we are all about preserving data privacy, or the opt-in approach to monetizing data and IP. So I think a lot of our AI and data products have always sort of come out of that. And then again, you have the DeFi side. Centralized finance is a hornet's nest for anybody that wants to get into it. But basically, it's just disintermediation, right? Where we don't want every transaction to run through the bank. We don't want to have to wait days and have permission to withdraw our money. So we're moving towards a peer-to-peer finance system, which is really the grassroots of where Bitcoin came from, where we're able to transact with each other, create liquidity for everything. And then also the ultimate dream here is to take all of this creative IP and be able to unlock the value in that, where people can borrow against IP that's nascent or sitting somewhere and sell it directly in a peer-to-peer marketplace, be able to actually borrow against it, or go like Bowie Bond, where you can take your whole catalog and leverage that to release your next album and pay it off from the proceeds. All of that is sort of the future of where our industry is headed. And again, you can see that one of the biggest fundraisers in the past year was a project called Story Protocol, which I think they've raised $140 million, which for crypto is huge. But Story Protocol's raised $140 million for an artistic IP blockchain that is just for registering your IP and being able to protect it and monetize it effectively.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
I think the IP protection is the major thing that needs to be figured out for AI and for blockchain to be more generally accepted with artists. And I had a great conversation with a friend the other day about how current consumer behavior around how people consume music and media in general is they want to be participants in it. There's all sorts of things that you could do with music using AI and AI avatars that will allow you to create passive income as an artist just by having an AI set up, an AI model that allows fans to participate with your music, use it to create specific songs for certain people, like personalization, all that sort of a thing. So there is so many great tools that I think AI is going to be providing for the creative world here in the near future.
Yeah, the biggest misstep for me was when Drake sued the deepfake guy who used an AI model to make like a Drake and Future song. For me, that was a moment where Drake should have said, wow, this technology just makes me so incredibly scalable as an artist. And I should absolutely bring this person on to my team, and I should create a model where anybody can go in and say, I broke up with my boyfriend today and I need a Drake song to talk smack about him.
Yeah.
And they would get a song with Drake's voice on it, and it would be personalized for their experience. And maybe it's a hit, maybe it's not, maybe it's just for that person. But being able to create that personal touch with music, I mean, this is sort of why some music memorabilia has lived on forever, right? It's because a person stood there and was at that concert or had this thing signed. It's not so much that it's like this great piece of paper, it's that there was an experience tied into it. And
Yeah.
the more personal of that experience, the more cherished it is, the more it's worth, right? So huge unlock for brands and artists. I think we're only in the beginning of that phase right now. Udio, are you familiar with Udio?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've used it.
it's incredible and really scary. It always makes me think like, whose voice is this on these
Yeah.
recordings? You know,
Yeah. Same with the other one, Suno. You ever use Suno as well?
use Suno yet.
I actually use Suno more than I use Udio, but they're both great. I was doing a thing on my Substack for a while, doing a monthly playlist tied to like my listening habits. And I was making the playlist on Spotify, but then I would write the lyrics myself and then use Udio or Suno to create the composition for the song. So it wasn't just another, hey, here's a monthly playlist of what I'm listening to. It was also, and here's an AI generated track built around lyrics I wrote that tie into why I'm listening to these other tracks.
This is one of the things about AI that I think everybody knows it now, or maybe we're all starting to get it now, but it's such a great Kickstarter for your creative process. Even if
Yeah.
you might not be good at this or that, it can help to compensate and give confidence for somebody that isn't a great visual artist, or, not a great musician, or maybe you're good at concepts but really bad at doing the thing. It's the unlock to let people be creative. So one of the first things that I made with Udio was actually a potty training song for my daughter.
That's
to
amazing.
her to like not on the floor and to go and use the toilet instead. And it was this very incredible song. I'll send it to you after. You can use it as the outro for the podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I had this conversation with my friend. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Red Gold Green, but the singer King Green is a good friend of mine. And such a big part of their presence is that they're a phenomenal live band. So that's where they make a lot of their money. So during the pandemic, obviously that was taken away from them. And he started just going on TikTok and talking about music and his process and that sort of thing. And he built this huge following, turned it into what he's calling the King Green Show. And he and I were talking the other day about just the pressures. If you're an artist, like it's hard to just say, I'm a trumpet player or I'm an actor, because the money is so tight now in any creative field you go to. So what we were saying is the market dictates now that artists need to be very diverse in what they're doing if they want to find success. But you're not going to have the time to be a great graphic designer and video editor and social media guru and writer to keep your Substack or whatever you want. So the great thing about AI is it allows an artist to respond to the conditions needed for success, where they're just always present, always on top of mind for people, doing a million different things. You could use AI to handle all the things that aren't your strong suit, so you don't end up losing hundreds of hours down YouTube rabbit holes trying to learn how to make a proper graphic on Photoshop or Illustrator. I think it's an opportunity to increase monetization as much as it's a missed opportunity being replaced on other projects.
This is sort of something that we were talking about the other day too with MetaMerch. Like, why go to market fast? Why get out there and put something in people's hands right away? The truth is, as an entrepreneur, when you're in the startup world, the most important thing is to get something out there and test it and get feedback on it, get people using it and see if it has market fit. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time assuming market fit and waiting for validation and thinking that you're just, oh, if I add one more feature, or maybe I tweak this, or I use a different type of wording around this, it's going to change the way that my product is perceived. There are people that start a startup and after 3 or 4 years are like, I'm almost ready to go to market. And when I go to market, it's gonna boom, and it's
Yeah.
this And you end up in this thing where, obviously sunken cost fallacy and all that, where you invest a lot of time and then you expect a return on that. So you keep investing. But on the other side of it, it's also for artists, it's the same thing. You talk about your friend getting out there on TikTok. Well, we've seen the change in how advertising is done. Even sort of traditional brands that are coming to TikTok, they're not like doing commercials. They're saying, like, give us an influencer or give us a meme, give us something that's fast and dirty, that feels appropriate for the medium, that is going to be cheap for us to do, that we can put out in volume and always sort of be there in front of our audience. And so for any startup, whether you're a music startup or a musician that's trying to get going or a tech startup in DeFi, whatever it is, it's like, don't wait. Don't expect the product to get to a point of polish before you go to market with it. The most important thing is just get the most crude version of that product out there right away as you can, so that people can say, hey, this is cool, or hey, I'll never use this, right? Like, you need to have that right away. Or like, the song, or I don't like this song. I don't know. TikTok's like instant gratification, right? Where it's either a person like watches your whole video, or the drop off is like 3 seconds or 6 seconds or whatever it is. Know whether your content's working or not. It's an interesting world, but AI lets you go very quickly to market with anything. Even going to market on like our weekly dietary schedule for my family. This is what I've got in my cabinet today. I asked ChatGPT to give us a menu, and that's where we start, right? It's like, this is the spending budget for the week. Give us a menu based on our dietary restriction. We literally use it like that in my family, because me and my wife could sit there, we could walk through the grocery store, fill the cart with things we don't need, or we can argue about what we want for dinner, and know that our daughter is not going to give it, or we can offload that really trivial sort of task and then curate from that. And it's almost like, if you think of it like you're the creative director and you're using these AIs to give you inspiration, all you have to do is say, this works, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that's okay. And then bring it all together. And then, even if you are a creator that wants to put your original touch on it, you can take that form and give it something, put it out there very quickly and be like, okay, this is what it kind of looks like. This is what I'm going for. Do I like it, or is this a waste of time? Do they like it, or do they want something else? And that's important. Beginning that feedback loop as early as you can, both for yourself and for your audience, is really important, I think.
One thing that I think was very common throughout your entire journey is the importance of just doing. When you were a kid, you bought that trumpet, it didn't work. You figured out how to make it work, and you sat there and you learned, you played by ear. You talk about changing careers. Every step of the way, you've just pursued. You did it. You put in the work.
Caution is not really my thing. My marriage is the best example of this. I met my wife in June. I knew that I wanted to be with her by September. And by December, her and I said, let's have a kid and let's just do this. So in 6 months, we had made like the active decision to say, we want to build a family right now. This is where we're going. And her and I are very much that same sort of way. This is what we want. We're going to do it right now, deal with everything else later. And we continue to be like that, and I'm never going to give that up. I would rather fail fast than fail slow. Failing the first time is the only thing that you can do in order to eventually get to success. If you don't fail fast, then you can never take a step forward. And you can make your feel like you're working and like all of those things, but the truth is, you just have to go, and you have to get it wrong, and then you have to get it wrong again, and you have to, I don't like the term fail up, but that really is the truth. You have to keep failing up those stairs until you get there. I was talking to a friend of mine recently about why I left acting. He came out from LA. It was the first time we had seen each other in like 5 years. He asked me, do you feel like you failed at being an actor? And that was a hard question for me to really answer, right? Because I was still acting a year ago. Or 2 years ago. I did a short film that went all over the country. I don't think of myself as an actor anymore, but if anybody ever calls me up and is like, hey, do you want to do something? I'm all about it. I'm not going to pursue something with so little return financially ever again as my whole commitment, because I learned my lesson on that front. That was an industry that either you can use acting or acting uses you. right? The entertainment industry can either be something that uses you as a resource, or you are building something and you take that opportunity to go and be a performer or do something, and that becomes amplification for all the things that you do in your body of work as a creative or your personal brand. And that really has been my approach. Build what I want to build and be creative in terms of business, separate from my artistic world. And if they overlap, then they can add value, but without sort of hedging my bets, right? I would say that I'm all in on building businesses, not like a gambling mindset, which is what acting is. I'm going to do an audition and hopefully I get it. Can't do that. And I would just say that I am an actor still. Getting up on stage as a guy, who is traveling the world and talking all the time. There's all kinds of times when talking with a panelist that I have no idea what they're building. You have to pivot so fast and like hear what they're saying, interpret it, and say, this is how it fits into like my worldview, my perspective. So a lot of transposable skills from being an actor, a performer, musician to getting into the real call and response of talking to VCs all the time, going to conferences, doing partnerships with billion-dollar projects. That stuff is like music. It really is.
Yeah. I'm happy you used the word pivot there, because the other thing that I was going to say that I really take out of your story and that I have a lot of admiration for, your ability to evolve and to disrupt. Every step along the way, it seems like you've really committed yourself to embracing disruptive technology or evolving what your focus is without losing that core sense of self and that passion for creativity. Because at the end of the day, what you guys are doing at Ori Chain is extremely creative. That's another thing that I really admire about you and that I really take out of your story.
Thank you, man. I also, as you know, admire you, Rich. When you see, I don't know, maybe Metaverse is out there in public. Yeah, maybe it's not. I don't know where it is right now in terms of your audience knowing about Metaverse, but I'm just going to say that when you showed me and told me about Metaverse maybe 6 months ago, I immediately was like, this is something that we need. And seeing the problem, right, space is so often like the biggest thing. And we talked about social media a little ago. We know that the attention spans are so short. So like being able to create a product that is built for helping to keep people engaged with brands and content, that's creatives. We're talking about creatives and tech and film people and everything, right? And influencers, like we're all sort of struggling with this same diminishing attention span, diminishing return content that we put out. So like finding a way to bring new life to that, man, like that is something that I'm super hyped about.
I appreciate it, dude. And you've been a tremendous help on the consulting front as we're getting this thing further out there to the public and working on this. So really appreciate that. I know we said 12:30 we're going to wrap. Just want to ask in closing, is there anything you want to promote, or where else can people find you if they want to follow you in Ori Chain?
Definitely recommend following Ori Chain on Twitter, ORAICHAIN. You can also follow me on Twitter if you dare, Tyree Robinson, TYREEROBINSON. Those are really the main things. If you're bold enough to be on Telegram, come find Ori Chain on Telegram the same way. That's mostly it. Short plug on my next big venture, which is a DeFi product. If any of you guys are into DeFi or into crypto at all, I really think that our industry has been really progressive in the way that we view finance. But what we've done really poorly is build interoperable technology. And we've built a lot of bridges. Bridges get hacked. All these different things sort of transfer money between blockchains. And so right now what I'm building is, it's called Thesis, and it's sort of the culmination of what is sort of everything in crypto so far, but I'm focusing instead on native blockchains. So creating a unified clearinghouse and communication layer for native blockchains to work together through a standard protocol. So this is going to allow for a brand new unlock of value from Bitcoin and Litecoin and all of those sort of traditional big tier one blockchains all the way to sort of smaller blockchains. And I think that it's going to be a great and very fertile ground for people to access liquidity for hopefully creative IP in the future and everything else. So trading, lending, all of that. So Thesis Foundation, Thesis FND on Twitter, please come check that out. There's not too many posts yet, but all that's going to be flowing pretty soon. And yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you very much
Awesome.
on the show. I hope that people enjoy hearing about my little slice of history.
I'm sure they will. I know I did.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Are you ready?